This is episode 236 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Jim Pfeifer. Jim is the former founder and president and CEO of Left Field Investors, which is now PassivePockets, where Jim is the co-host of the PassivePockets podcast and a longtime investor in syndications as a limited partner. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I had Paul on just a few episodes ago, and you guys have formed a great team at getting PassivePockets off the ground. So let's just go right into that. How long ago did you start Left Field Investors? Because this is really where you got your start in this end, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And Left Field Investors was a pandemic baby, I guess is how you say it.
Yeah.
I had done active real estate investing, and I was transitioning into passive. And I had started an active real estate group in Columbus, Ohio, where I met and just made a lot of great connections and did a lot of business with local people through those connections I made at the meetup. And so I thought, okay, now I'm getting into passive investing in syndications. I need a group, right? I need a community. So I wanted a smaller group. So I thought 12 people, we get together, have dinner once a month and talk about syndications.
Yeah.
Our first meeting was supposed to be March 18th, 2020. And in Ohio, that's when the world shut down, right?
Yeah.
So we never met in person. We went online. And, that first year, it was about creating a mastermind and trying to keep people away, right? Because so many people heard about this and thought, oh, I want to do this too.
Yeah.
And so we tried to keep it small because we were thinking it was a mastermind. And pretty quickly, by the end of 2020, we figured out that there's so much interest in building a community of passive investors who can work together to try to figure this out, right? It's a lot different than active investing. It's very difficult to vet operators, and these are long-term illiquid investments. So there's a lot of complications. So eventually we just said, you know what, this is something bigger than a mastermind. And we started a community. We got a website named it Left Field Investors, and we were off to the races serving limited partner investors.
What was it about passive investing that led you to go from active to passive? Was it the normal that it's like, well, why do all this work when maybe I can kick back and relax a little bit more and trust others?
Yeah, it was partially that and partially that I wasn't good at being an active investor, right? It's asset management.
Yeah.
And I could do all the numbers. I thought I knew what I was doing. And what was happening was the market just kept going up. Right. So anybody could make money in those days. I owned single family homes. I owned, multifamily up to a 22 unit, a couple 8 units, a 4 unit.
Wow. Okay.
And what I found out was I spent most of my time arguing with the property manager about evictions and other things. And I thought I was a passive investor, right?
Yeah.
I was passively investing into these units I was buying, and I had a property manager manage it. So that was passive. But I was completely incorrect, right? My strategy didn't match what I was actually doing. And so once I found syndications, I found my strength. And my strength, I think that if you're going to be active, you have to have an advantage over other people, right? You either need to be able to swing a hammer really good, or you need to know a particular market better than anyone else so you can find those advantages. I didn't have any advantages in the markets I was in. And what I realized is I can hire an asset manager who does that full time. That's their only job. And they're going to be much better at it than I am. And then it gives me the ability to diversify by market, by operator, by asset class, by debt structure, by so many different things that I'm not just stuck in one or two markets and one or two asset classes. So that's really when the light bulb went off that, hey, I can still be in real estate because I like real estate for a number of reasons, tax situation, the money you make, but I just wasn't good at operating the asset. And once I figured that out, I hire professional managers now, just like I do when I do my taxes. I have a professional do it.
Right.
When I want to drop a legal document, I don't do that myself anymore. I hire an attorney. So I also hire asset managers to manage my real estate investments.
I think there's a lot of options out there. So when something does go full cycle, you have opportunity to 1031 into another option, which could be another asset class. I've been interested in this. You can do your due diligence in advance to really see what's out there so you know where you want to put the money.
Yeah. And I would even argue that, 1031 isn't really completely necessary And it's difficult to do in syndications because then
Yeah.
you have to find a specific operator. But when I sold all of our active real estate, I didn't do a standard 1031. I went to my accountant and I said, hey, I'm selling all this active real estate. I'm going to have a lot of gain. And, what do I do? And he said, well, there's a couple things you could do. Number one, you just made a bunch of money. You could suck it up and pay the taxes. I thought, well, that's not my favorite option. What's option number two?
Yeah.
And he said, you could do a lazy 1031, which is basically if you invest the gains in a new syndication and you get that, and at the time bonus depreciation was 100%. So it makes a difference. You can use all that new loss to offset the old gain if you do it in the same calendar year. And even as bonus depreciation decreases, you can still do that. And so, for how I do it, I don't pay much tax on the real estate holdings, and it shocks people, but that's one of the big benefits of real estate. And to be able to do it without having to jump through the hoops of a 1031, but getting a similar result is another huge benefit.
Let's talk about PassivePockets a little, because I know you guys transitioned your original company to PassivePockets. But what does PassivePockets offer now to the Bigger Pockets community? Because it's still pretty new. I think only maybe six months or less than a year in. And I think there's a lot of people. I've obviously been on Bigger Pockets for years and years, and I think it's interesting. People, what can they get from PassivePockets as a member, and then what does the trial and then the membership do?
Yeah, so the membership, it's completely separate from Bigger Pockets. It's a different website, a different community, but we do have a lot of crossover, right? A lot of our members are members of both. And what you get with the community is a lot of what we've been talking about. So there's a forum where you can interact with other investors, and we have a lot of people, hey, have you ever heard of ABC Operator? And then other people will comment. We have several different interesting, I think, categories. Like we have the red flag sponsor category where people will post, hey, here's what happened. I had a really bad experience with this operator. Here's why. And then other people can comment on it. We have the same thing for good operators. We have reviews. So you can go there and look, does this operator have 5 stars, 4 stars, whatever? And people can comment on it. And the forum, you can ask any type of question and you'll get lots of answers. I mentioned we have the deal webinars. We also have some investing tools like the deal analyzer I talked about. There's a sponsor, like a screener. So questions you should ask a sponsor the first time. So there's just a lot of content, and we're constantly developing more. And you get a free trial, which is nice. So you have 7 days to kind of test out the site and see if it's a fit. And what I tell people, that there's not a lot, but there's several different investment communities out there for syndication investors. And I think one of the critical things is that you find one where the culture of that community fits your personality.
Yeah.
Now, that might be PassivePockets. I'm obviously biased. I think it's the best community out there. But if you're not comfortable there, find somewhere where you are, because there's a lot of different types of operator or communities. And another thing that we do is we have an annual meetup, and this one is coming up in May. It's in Columbus, Ohio, where we get 100 to 150 LP investors. We also have GPs come, and it's kind of a unique meetup where we do a lot of networking. We facilitate networking. So you're constantly meeting other LPs, you're meeting operators, and you get to have not one-on-one, but, small group time with each operator that's there. So you can learn about them and all of that. So there's a ton of stuff you can do at PassivePockets. And again, if you're going to do syndication investing, I really, really think you got to be part of a community. PassivePockets is a great place to start.